Hey everyone, I'm Fred Ranger and I hope you're doing good. In today's video, I want to share with you some of my findings around shooting the latest two flagship cameras from Fujifilm, the Fujifilm X-H2 and the Fujifilm X-H2s. Although they are pretty similar in the look and the feel of the cameras, there are some differences that might actually skew your decision, and I want to give you my experience with those cameras so you don't have to buy both cameras to find out. Before we do, I want to thank you for being part of this community. We are almost hitting that 8,000 subscribers on this channel. Not in my wildest dream would I've thought that 8,000 people would be around this community of visual storytelling and the gear we use to tell our stories in this day and age. So I'm very pumped about that. So let's get that subscribe button going if you aren't subscribed, and if you are interested in learning more about cameras and filmmaking and photography, please hit that bell notification also, because you'll know when I'll release a new video. But without further ado, and with that out of the way, let's talk about the main subject today, which are those two cameras. So the first thing I will say is, let's start with the X-H2. I know the X-H2s was released first, but I want to talk about the X-H2 because I think that this is pretty much the logic sequence of releasing a new X-H body after the X-H1. I was a big fan of the X-H1. I ended up buying this camera twice, the X-H1, and I love shooting it, and at some point it was limiting me and there were some better options in the Fuji lineup, so I decided to sell it and to get an X-T3 and eventually an X-T4. Here with the X-H2, you've got a 40 megapixel BSI sensor that gives you the ability to crop like never before. So the past one was 24 megapixel, the X-H1, and now you've got, pretty much double the resolution, so you can crop in if you are, if you missed the shot a bit and the composition wasn't perfect, well, you can just use one of those new lenses that can resolve that sensor, and you can crop in for days without any loss in quality. The second thing I want to say is that this camera has 8K downsample to 4K video. So although the X-H2s, which I'll talk about in a minute, has more video features, this one is pretty capable of giving you a very, very clean 4K image. And also with that new sensor, you get ultra crisp results. And again, if you use it with a newer lens like this 33mm f1.4 that I've got here, or the 18 that's filming me right now, you're gonna get the best results for this 8K downsample 4K footage. I mean, you've got the 422 10-bit internal recording, just like the X-H2s, but again, this is more about the 40 megapixel sensor. This is the main difference between those two cameras. Also, and I'm looking here because I have some notes, if you are into the pixel shift technology, you'll be able to take amazing 160 megapixel images, and this is crazy because it's using the IBIS, that's 7-stop actually. It's using the IBIS to shift the sensor slightly to give you a full 160 megapixel image. And so if you are into landscape or cityscape and so on and so forth, you're gonna be very happy to know that this camera can do 160 megapixel image. This is unprecedented, as you can imagine, but also it has an ultra fast shutter speed of 1/180,000 of a second. This is 2.5 stops more than the previous series of cameras. So I haven't actually shot at that, super fast shutter speed. I don't see the need for it, but if you are into capturing those micro moments, and if you are into, let's say, having a drop in the water and freezing the action, you'll be able to do that with this camera. So those are kind of the main differences between this camera and that camera. There are a lot of similarities though. So if you start looking at what actually bridges those cameras, the cool thing is that it's the exact same body, and that's a body that if you have larger hands like me, I mean, I've got large hands, it fits really like a glove at the end of the day, because the XT series, although I haven't touched the XT5 yet, I have one on order, so I'll be able to review that. But the X-H2 is really fitting like a glove for people with larger hands. You don't even need a battery grip. I mean, there is a battery grip for those cameras, but you don't even need it if you don't want the extra battery life. You can just go straight. with that body, and you won't feel like if it's too small and so on and so forth. So the exact same body, 7-stop of IBIS. This is also something that's built into those cameras. So when you want to have a very steady shot for video, or it can also help for static, photography, you've got 7 stops, up to, depending on the lens you're using, of IBIS, and that's really appreciated in both of those cameras. Both of those cameras also have the subject detection. So this is for train, cars, bicycles, faces, dogs, animals, and so on and so forth. So the latest autofocus recognition AI is built into those two cameras. It isn't the same exact autofocus algorithm and system and speed, and I'll talk about that in a second. But rest assured that if you are into photographing certain type of elements, both of these cameras will be able to do that for you. The high resolution EVF, that's also something that those cameras shares. I think it's 5 million dots, and it shows when you go back to an XT4 that's filming me right now, or an XT4 or an XT, even the XT5, you'll see that this is pretty much the pinnacle and the best of the EVF that Fujifilm can offer for now. And it's hard actually to go back to something older technology or not as sharp as the EVF that you're seeing here. And also the LCD screens are super good on those cameras, and they do share that between both models. Also the HEIF image format. This is 10-bit image, equivalent of JPEG, but less space needed, and also apparently very high standard when it comes to color reproduction. So I've tested it. I haven't seen a lot of differences, to be honest, between both images. I'll put some links below to a blog post where you'll be able to see images from both cameras. And I mean, you'll be the judge yourself, and you'll be able to tell me if you see a difference. I don't, but apparently this is the future of JPEG images, and this is the compressed HEIF file format, 10-bit images that apparently is going to be the replacement of JPEG. I still shoot JPEG. I love my JPEGs. I don't have any problems with JPEG, but hey, your mileage may vary. Both cameras have that 422 10-bit internal recording for video. They both have a CF Express card that you can actually have right here, and an SD card. So both of your cameras will be able to do high speed and also some very cool stuff on the video front, being able to have that read speed on those cards. Also F-Log2, this is something that they brought with the X-H2s. F-Log2 is a great way to get more dynamic range when you're filming video. And also those film simulation, including the new nostalgic negative, which is giving a lot of people some anxiety because they want to see it in their older cameras. And for now, you have to have a recent model of Fujifilm cameras to be able to get access to that beautiful, beautiful film simulation that is nostalgic neg. So those are the similarities. So we talked about the advantage or the unique selling proposition of the X-H2, all about that 40 megapixel sensor. We've talked about what actually bridges those two cameras and the similarities. Now let's talk about this one, which is the X-H2s, and the S stands for speed. And as you can imagine, they came to the market with that camera, and it was a very cluttered world out there with the Sony a7 IV and the Canon, R insert number here, and the Nikon, the latest Nikons, and so on and so forth. So they really needed to come to the market with something that was as good or pretending to be as good as these big guys. And on the APS-C front, I'm happy to report that this is probably the best camera that Fujifilm has put into the market. It sports the 5th generation X-Trans CMOS HS sensor. This is a 26.1 megapixel versus the 40 megapixel here. So you might say, hey, this is less megapixel. This is not as good as this one. Well, hold your horses. There are some advantages of having 26.1 megapixel. This is a stacked sensor. This is a backside illuminated sensor. So this is a sensor that gives you actually readout speeds that are faster than a 40 regular CMOS sensor that is in this camera, the X-H2. So the S stands for speed, and the fact that they've been able to do a stack sensor gives you faster readout speed. So this is good for rolling shutter as an example. This camera has very, very little rolling shutter when it comes to panning in video, and also photography when you have a fast moving object like an F1 car that's passing in front of your lens. So very happy to report that they've done a tremendous job at working on that new sensor that is stacked and backside illuminated. This camera also films in open gate, and this is 6.2K. And when you have that, this is 8K, this is downsampled to 4K, but this open gate is pretty much the full readout of the sensor. This is your 4x3 or 3x2, I forgot the exact format, but this is kind of more square than rectangle, and it gives you a full readout of the sensor, so you can actually crop in and do those TikTok videos and those Instagram videos in full resolution. And it's easier to crop in than taking a 16:9 image and then trying to crop in into there. 30 frames per second, also better autofocus. This is also something that you should know, is that yes, they have the same subject detection type of autofocus, so they can recognize items on both, but here on the X-H2s, I'm actually really impressed by the autofocus. And when I say impressed, is because I've been using Fujifilm cameras for so long now. I've been shooting Fujifilm cameras for 11 years. I actually have a video talking about that with the original X100. So they've come a long way. Is it as good as the Sony eye tracking, or you click on something and then it tracks it? No, it's not there yet, but I think they're getting very, very close. And if you are a Fuji shooter, you'll be happy to know that this camera is almost there, and it's so much better than the X-T4, the X-T3, and of course, all of the older models. It has a better signal to noise ratio. That's also something that you should know about, because this 40 megapixel, you've got a lot to crop in, and it's great to see that you have maximum resolution on an APS-C sensor, but it also means more noise when you shoot in low light. Whereas here, and that's my dog, that's barking, so you're welcome to my world. So this is a camera that you'll be able to shoot in low light and have better signal to noise, so less noise, because it is 26 megapixel on an APS-C sensor. So you should know that if you do a lot of low light photography and low light videography, you'll be better served with the X-H2s. And then overall, I think both cameras are great, and I think that this is a wonderful time we live in, and even Fujifilm spoiled us with the new X-T5, so there's another option in there that I'm about to get and review. But if we're talking about the X-H2 and the X-H2s, which camera is for what type of photographer or filmmaker? Well, if you are a filmmaker, I will definitely recommend the X-H2s, and this is the camera that I went with because I was planning on using this camera mainly for video, to do these type of videos and also travel videos and so on and so forth. It can obviously shoot great photos like any other Fujifilm camera, but I wanted to have this one as my main video camera. So I went with that one. And the X-H2, if you are a stills shooter that actually does a bit of video, but it's not your primary function, this is capable of doing great videos, but also photography at the maximum that this APS-C sensor to this date can achieve with 40 megapixel backside illuminated sensor. So it's great that they are also differentiating the lines of products. So the X-T5, as you can see, is now all about photography with that three-way tilt screen versus these guys that have the, flip back screen, or on the side type of flip like that, so you can actually film yourself and see yourself when you do these kind of videos or selfies and so on and so forth. So I would recommend filmmakers getting this camera, but again, you will be able to take photos. I'm actually debating if I bring only that to an upcoming trip to Mexico, so follow me on Instagram if you want to know which camera I'm bringing for that trip. It might actually be just that one because I get all the video features and the actual photo features too. But if you are a video or filmmaker, I highly recommend getting one of these, and this is the small rig cage, and it fits perfectly with the X-H2s. It even has a battery door here that you can open, and I just lost the screw. So this is, again, this is going super well. But here you can remove the battery very easily. There's a little clip here so it doesn't move. So highly recommend getting this if you are into filmmaking. It also gives you options to screw or to put in, you know, your monitor and so on and so forth. And for the X-H2, what I recommend getting is the new lenses. So if you want to see a review of the 33mm that I just got, and also the 18mm that I just got, ask questions down below, or like this video, or, you know, share it, because at the end of the day, it's all about discovering what's good for you and what's good for me. What works for me might not work for you. This is also something that I wanted to make very clear. This is just my humble opinion. This is also my experience with those cameras. But if you have any questions, please ask them down below, and I'll be happy to share my response with you. And also you can hop on that link to the blog to see more images of both the cameras and the images that I took with the cameras. And I've been Fred Ranger. I remind you to be happy, to enjoy life, and to enjoy your wonderful Fujifilm cameras. Cheers.